20 hostage families finally got to hug their loved ones today. Joy after so much grief and fear and so many sleepless nights. You can hear it in their voices. Now comes the challenges that they're happy to take on. Hostages relearning what it is to be free, and their families who recently have told me how much they've been anticipating today's reunions.
Definitely, we get guidance from other families. I have no doubt that we'll manage to go through it. And we're so grateful that we've reached this point.
Our family will be whole again. I want my son to gain control back on his life. And the message is, this is for him.
Joining me now, Christopher O'Leary, MSNBC national security and intelligence analyst and former director of hostage recovery for the U.S. government. I'm sure you watch these reunion scenes with a very particular eye, given your background. First, let me ask you an obvious question, what you make of their physical conditions, at least the ones that we've seen.
Of course, they look to be in relatively good physical health. What that might be is that Hamas was actually trying to give them extra nutrition with the plan of eventually releasing them, so they don't look as shocking as we've seen some of the previous hostages look, which really shocked and concerned the world. And, at the end of the day, Hamas was using these hostages as currency and also, as part of their media campaign. And you don't want to look like, somebody who is perceived as a wrongdoer in this, when Hamas is trying to, still capture some legitimacy.
You look at these videos and there's just so much exuberance that people can't even keep it in, jumping up on the hostages or the woman who is jumping up and down. There's that moment. And then tell us what happens next for these hostages.
So they're going to go into a very controlled environment. The United States actually created this process. It came out of, post-Korea and Vietnam from prisoners of war, and it was called the Post-Isolation Support Activity, or PISA, where you give the recovered individuals the right psychological, medical support, but also dental, vision. A lot of them have lived in the tunnels for the last couple of years, so they've been deprived of light, so they might be sensitive to light, nutritional support, sleep studies and sleep support, while you're also giving their family support. But it needs to be very controlled, and it's kind of surprising that they've let the families jump on them like that, because that can overwhelm the hostages. The way the United States does it is in a much more controlled manner. You let the hostage have some control over who gets to see them, and really it's the beginning of the integration process. And listen, they are just shocked by all of this and seeing sunlight and being surrounded by people, and you certainly want to keep the media away from them.
I just want to say what we're looking at live here. Obviously, this is in Egypt, and the Middle East peace agreement signing ceremony just finished. We're waiting to hear from the President of the United States. But in the meantime, I think we should note that there are other families who are not so fortunate. Their loved ones did not survive captivity, and in fact, it's unclear when all of the hostage bodies will be returned. There's some difficulty in some cases locating them. We know in the past they've had trouble identifying them. Talk about the complexities of that.
Well, it's always complex in these situations. I can't, point to a situation that's more complex than this. I mean, we're looking at a completely devastated Gaza, so you have to find out when these hostages might have been killed, where they might have been killed, how they were killed. Did they die of starvation in a tunnel, or were they accidentally killed in a kinetic airstrike by Israel? Are they likely buried under rubble? Are they buried in a collapsed tunnel? Who was holding them? Was it Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad? And who can lead them to where these remains might be? As far as identifying them, once you recover those remains or pieces of the remains, doing rapid DNA analysis, depending on how what remains you have, comparing dental records, or bringing in a forensic anthropologist to measure the different lengths of bones. There's certain bones that you look at to see if it would correlate with the height of a hostage or if it was a male or a female. And again, if some of them were recovered in relatively good condition, you may still be able to get some fingerprints or something else that you can identify them with scars or marks that they previously had. And then the other part, going back to the recovered hostages, at some point when they're ready, intelligence professionals and law enforcement professionals will do debriefs of them, trying to not only ascertain where these other hostages might have been held and killed, but also who held them. So don't forget that while we see a ceasefire in front of us, the United States, Israel, and others may look to criminally pursue some of the hostage takers in the future.
There is also, according to Israel, an IDF special force. They call it a designated special force to help recover those bodies. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around, the size of where they might be looking. Would they potentially try to work cooperatively with Hamas or other organizations who can give them some idea of where some of these remains might be found? How would they even operate?
Yeah, it's tough to say exactly how. I've actually helped run very sensitive operations just like this with U.S. Special Operations in Syria and Iraq. And the composition of the force will change depending on where you're doing that recovery. They might be working with local surrogate forces. Thinking of the IDF Special Operations partnering with Hamas is just not realistic. So depending on where the remains might be, getting heavy equipment, ground penetrating radar, or any other equipment needed to really excavate the site and in a way that is forensically sound so you can actually recover the remains in the best condition that they can be worked with, and you might be able to positively identify that individual, is a challenge.
We talk about recovery. We talk about what it's going to be like in the coming days, weeks, and months for the hostages. But what about the families on both sides? And will they continue to get the kind of support and help that unfortunately years of experience have given us? I know that the families themselves have formed bonds and been helpful to each other. But what about help from experienced professionals, Chris?
Yeah, so the great thing is, it's unfortunate, but it's great at the same time, that the hostage community, both in the United States and around the world, has built this network, this bond. So shared experiences and mentorship programs, the families support each other. And then the hostages, whether were a hostage from the United States or a hostage from Israel, you have some shared background and some shared trauma, unfortunately, so you can guide each other through this process. But one thing that will be needed is long-term care, not only psychologically and medically for a lot of these hostages, but also for reintegration into society. Some may need help with finding a job. Some might need financial help to get back on their feet. And those are things that the United States learned over time. And there's programs in place with not only the U.S. government, but a lot of NGOs as well. And a lot of these hostages in Israel will need the same exact thing.